Hey, Olive, Arlo, and Frank. Grandpa coming to you from the living room in beautiful Jack's Beach. It's very rainy today. I had to go over to Mayo Clinic to get some pre-surgery blood work for my stent surgery tomorrow, and it was pouring rain. The place was a mess. It was there forever, but hey, such is life. Anyway, today we're going to jump back into the Old Testament to the book of Exodus, the second book of the Bible. There's the first 5 books of the Bible that are called the Torah, the law of Moses, the books of Moses. They were written by Moses. We're not going to get into all the, like, who wrote what and what's true. We're just not going to do it. It would take too long. We're going to read through the Bible. I mean, when you drink from the hose, you're going to taste the hose. So you're going to get some of my opinions in here. But I try to minimize them. I believe these are true events. We saw at the end of the book of Genesis that Joseph's brothers, Joseph was the next to the youngest brother of Jacob, of Israel, of the 12 brothers. And they sold him into slavery, and they went back and told their father Jacob he was dead. But he wasn't. The people they sold him to, took him to Egypt, sold him to the captain of the guard, a guy named Potiphar, captain of the guard for the Pharaoh, who was the ruler of Egypt back then. And Olive, we're talking about your ancestors, the Egyptians. Half of your lineage is Egyptian. Your grandparents, the Elkites, were born in Egypt and moved here. Your dad and his brothers and sisters were all born here. But Egyptians have a proud heritage. And some of it is documented here. I believe this really happened. That these are real people. And you can spend a lot of time studying all this stuff. You know, but they get down here. They come to Egypt because they're starving. The brothers. They go to Egypt because they're starving. And Joseph is the second most powerful man in Egypt. He goes from being thrown into prison for years to get now solving this problem. That he said there was a famine coming. He told him how to not have the famine wipe the Egyptians out. And because he was correct, he was made the second most powerful man in Egypt. He ruled alongside Pharaoh. Now his brothers come down because the famine was worldwide. And they didn't live that far away from Egypt. Maybe 100 miles, 200 miles from where, like in Cairo, Egypt, to Israel. Might be longer than that, but it's not that far. Egypt borders on Israel, modern day Israel. And modern day Israel is a pretty large portion of what the children of Israel had back then. I don't think it's exactly the same. So they get down there and Joseph starts messing with them because they don't recognize him. He's dressed as an Egyptian. He's got a shaved head, and they're Hebrews. They have the big beards and the long hair and everything. And they don't know who he is, but he knows who they are. And he eventually has them go get the father, Jacob, and bring him back with their families. And they bring the whole tribe of the children of Israel down to Egypt. And they stay there for 200 years. And at the end of that 200 years, these things happen. So let's get started. These are the names of the sons of Israel who entered Egypt. Each man with his household entered with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah; Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin; Dan and Naphtali; Gad and Asher. All the people who were directly descended from Jacob numbered 70. But Joseph was already in Egypt, and in time Joseph and his brothers and all that generation died. The Israelites, however, were fruitful, increased greatly, multiplied, and became extremely strong, so that the land was filled with them. Then a new king, and the king is Pharaoh, who did not know about Joseph, came to power over Egypt. He said to his people, "Look at the Israelite people, more numerous and stronger than we are. Come, let's deal wisely with them. Otherwise, they will continue to multiply, and if a war breaks out, they will ally themselves with our enemies and fight against us and leave the country." So they put foremen over the Israelites to oppress them with hard labor. So these foremen, these are like bosses at work. If you have a factory jobs like that, you'll have a foreman. That's the boss. As a result, they built Pithom and Ramses as store cities for Pharaoh. So these are places where they store grain. But the more the Egyptians oppressed them, the more they multiplied and spread. As a result, the Egyptians loathed the Israelites, so they hated them. And they made the Israelites serve rigorously. So now they're really like slaves. They made their lives bitter by hard service with mortar and bricks and by all kinds of service in the fields. Every kind of service the Israelites were required to give was rigorous. So they had them building, they had them taking care of animals, they had them doing all kinds of manual labor. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one who was named Shiphrah and the other Puah, "When you assist the Hebrew women in childbirth, observe at the delivery. If it is a son, kill him. But if it is a daughter, she may live." But the midwives feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them. They let the boys live. So these are called the Hebrew midwives. I'm assuming that they mean that they were Hebrews and midwives. And midwives are women who assist in the birth of babies. When another woman's having a baby, they know what to do to make sure that she doesn't die and the baby doesn't die, and how to take care of the baby and what to do after it's born and all that stuff. So I'm assuming that they're not Egyptian women that are supposed to be midwives for the Hebrew women. Because that would be a little odd, because that would mean that they know God. And we're going to see during the time in this book, there were other people besides the children of Israel who believed in the God of Israel. They let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this and let the boys live?" The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for the Hebrew women are vigorous. They give birth before the midwife gets to them." And this is why you think that these might be Egyptian women that are midwives to the Hebrews, because they know the difference. Or it could be that they're Hebrew women and that midwives are slaves. So that the Egyptian women can't be midwives. So they have the Hebrew women come to them. But whatever, they know how the Egyptian women give birth, and they know how the Hebrew women give birth. So they're saying the babies are born before we get there. So God treated the midwives well, and the people multiplied and became very strong. And because the midwives feared God, he made households for them. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, all sons that are born you must throw into the river, but all daughters you may let live. So, Pharaoh's kind of a rough dude, huh? Anyway, it's a short chapter. Next time we're going to look at the birth of Moses. And with that being said, peace out.